Hello, everyone. Happy Friday, and welcome to another members only webinar. Today, I'm talking about the possibility, even I would dare say the likelihood, that school choice funded by the government, as in taxpayer dollars through ESAs and vouchers and so forth. Excuse me. I'm trying to get this to go behind my ear. Going to charter schools, private schools, etc., could end up funding religious extremism or other kinds of extremism for that matter, cultish extremism. Now, I've said this before on my main YouTube channel. I've said it in articles about school choice. I've said it in posts on social media about school choice that one of the challenges is that it is taxpayer money, like all the school money, all the so-called school money, school dollars, comes from taxes, not just property taxes either. It comes from taxes on corporations, and it's a mixture of federal money, state money, county money, etc. Uh, but as such, we the taxpayers, not just parents, we the taxpayers should want oversight. Don't we want oversight of Medicaid, Medicare, EBT cards, all of these things? Well, well, sure we do. Because the potential for fraud when you have a giant pot of money like that is enormous. Think of how many people were caught selling EBT cards to people who didn't need them and so on. And people within the post office were giving away social security numbers and access to things like that. There's been Medicaid fraud, Medicare fraud. It's anytime there's a giant pot of money run from a central location, um, you want oversight, you want audits, you want to know where's it going and and for what. And I would challenge people to back up from that even a little bit and say, if the premise of having the government collect money for education in the first place, whether to go to the one centrally managed monopoly of public school or to be redistributed out to school choice for private schools and charters and so on. Um, if the premise of that is that we should buy ourselves an educated society, that's something that we need and we should want and we should collectively support, then all the more reason we should want oversight to make sure it is, in fact, what we're paying for. And I would like to believe that the main criterion, singular, is that the education we American taxpayers are buying does not subvert the very constitution that our lawmakers and so-called leaders swear to preserve, protect, and defend. So why would we want to spend money on schools that could be teaching our kids subversion, literal subversion? Like America's a bad place and you should want to overthrow it and undermine it and turn it into a fundamentally different country. I don't think our tax dollars should pay for that. Honestly, I don't think anyone should be paying for that, but I'm a free speech absolutist. So I don't think the government should come in and say, you can't set up a private little school to teach people that. Now, if you are doing it in such a way that you're preaching violence explicitly, I think we have laws about that. But do we really need to go that far before we say we're not going to give you tax money? I would hope not. I hope that the tax money just plain shouldn't go to religious institutions, period. If you want to know my honest answer, I don't think it should go to parochial schools either. I think separation of church and state means exactly that. I don't think that I, as a taxpayer, should be, uh, handing somebody money from taxes to go to religious school, even if the school is better academically than another school. That is just not what we're supposed to be paying for. That, I don't think we should be paying for anybody's education, but if we're going to, it shouldn't be to a religious school. But today we're going to talk about specifically Islam. And I'm not suggesting that you couldn't see religious extremists trying to teach kids from other faiths. I'm saying that this is the one that is most likely to, given where we are in the world right now with Hamas and ISIS and so on, and even going all the way back to Al Qaeda and Before that, the Muslim Brotherhood. And we're going to talk about the Muslim Brotherhood today. So, again, to recap and set the stage, my question is, will school choice enable religious extremism? And I'm going to make the case to you that yes, it will, if it's done the way people want it to be done, which is through government redistributing money to parents or whatever on behalf of their students they can then take to religious schools. I think it absolutely will. I don't think it's even a question of if, just when and to what degree. So, for evidence, let me bring up something from 2020. And if you're wondering why 2020 is 2024 now, yeah, I'm just bringing evidence because every time I say something about school choice, people are, but it's better than nothing and it's a step in the right direction. Unless you think tax dollars going to religious extremists is a step in the right direction, I think you should be concerned because this has been going on for a while. But you know what? Before I go to the article from 2020, before I go there, I'm going to actually bring up something from 1991 and it may surprise you. So, this one is an explanatory memorandum on the general strategic goal for the Brotherhood in North America. This is the Muslim Brotherhood, 1991, the Investigative Project on Terrorism by Muhammad Akram. It's not by John Smith or something. This is by somebody who understands the issue. And I will show you what this is translated from so you can see that it comes directly from Muslim Brotherhood documents. Summary. In May 1991, this May 1991 memo was written by Muhammad Akram, aka Muhammad Adluni, for the Shura Council of the Muslim Brotherhood. If you're unfamiliar with the Muslim Brotherhood, they were the Islamist organization behind the assassination of Anwar Sadat. They are one of the organizations that ended up in Gaza way back in the way back. And one of the reasons why the Egyptians have a big wall and do not want Gazans into Egypt because they know that the descendants of the Muslim Brotherhood are Hamas. So Muslim Brotherhood are some bad guys, right? They destabilized Egypt multiple times and they are now pretty much centralized in Gaza and known as the Islamic Jihad and Hamas, they're descendants of Muslim Brotherhood. In the introductory letter, Akram referenced a long-term plan approved and adopted by the Shura Council in 1987 when I was graduating college and proposed this memo as a supplement to their plan and requested that the memo be added to the agenda for an upcoming council meeting. Appended to the document is a list of all Muslim Brotherhood organizations in North America of 1991, as of 1991. Notable quotes. Enablement of Islam in North America, meaning establishing an effective and stable Islamic movement led by the Muslim Brotherhood, which adopts Muslims' causes domestically and globally, and which works to expand the observant Muslim base, aims at unifying and directing Muslims' efforts, presents Islam as a civilization alternative, and supports the global Islamic State wherever it is. In order for Islam and its movement to become a part of the homeland in which it lives, stable in its land, rooted in the spirits and minds of its people, enabled in the lives of its society, and has firmly established organizations on which the Islamic structure is built, and with which the testimony of civilization is achieved, the movement must plan and struggle to obtain the keys and the tools of this process in carrying out this grand mission as a civilization jihadist responsibility, which lies on the shoulders of Muslims and on top of them, the Muslim Brotherhood in this country. The process of settlement is a civilization jihadist process with all the word means. The Ikhwan must understand that their work in America is kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers so that it is eliminated and God's religion is made victorious over all other religions. Without this level of understanding, we are not up to this challenge and have not prepared ourselves for jihad yet. It is a Muslim's destiny to perform jihad and work wherever he is and wherever he lands until the final hour comes. And there's no escape from that destiny except for those who chose to slack. But would the slackers and the mujahideen be equal? So it kind of goes on. And the full document from which this is translated if you wanted to see it, is here in the original Arabic. So if you know Arabic or no one who does, you can go read it and you can see for yourself. Now, what caught my attention were a couple of things. First, so here they were talking about Muslim Brotherhood setting up this thing, etc. And I started to think about, well, how would they do that? You know, by what means? And of course, what comes to mind are schools, colleges, prisons, institutions that where people sort of have to be or choose to be for a large amount of time. And somebody actually shared this video with me. It's time stamped. I want you to listen to this gentleman on the left explain how he came to be a Muslim. Now, what you should know about him, and this is 6 years ago, is he also happens to be the imam in charge of a mosque in New Jersey. And it is a mosque that works very closely with the Cherry Hill Public Schools on their so-called African American Studies curriculum, which is now required to graduate from Cherry Hill Public Schools. He's been instrumental in introducing to that curriculum in connection with the BLM in the classroom what he calls anti-Palestinian studies. So in other words, he's pushing for or anti-Islamophobia. He's pushing for specific curriculum to teach the kids not only not to be afraid of Islam, but to teach them about Islam in public schools. This is just in public schools. I mean, we're not even getting to school choice yet. Not even there yet. We're just talking about a guy who has a major role in Cherry Hill Public Schools, pushing, lobbying lawmakers, local universities to try to get the students dialed into the struggle and the liberatory nature of that struggle. So I want you to listen to him talk about how, because he wasn't born a Muslim, how he came to Islam. This will be instructive.
Unintentionally, by way of a college course that was being taught, I was enrolled in
your college?
in my college. Yes, North Carolina State University has numerous faculties, and as
He came to Islam not intentionally while at NC State, a state school, subsidized by taxpayer dollars already.
as a business student, our university didn't require us simply to study business, but they wanted us to take electives to get
Required to take electives.
a well-rounded education. So some of my
Your major, you have an elective.
I have my major, and then I have numerous electives to fulfill. And so it was a history class, history of America. Not just America, but African American history.
Sound familiar? Remember that I told you he is the guy. He is one of the guys who's been brought in. Let me see if I can get his exact title because he is very instrumental in their African American studies curriculum. And I want to get it right. There's just so much material. It's an insane amount of material that he is pushing to have in the schools about this very topic. And I mean, yeah, it's a lot. So let me see. Where is it? What his actual role is. I know that he's been speaking at the school board meetings. He's been talking about sort of anti-Palestinianism, anti-Islamophobia. He's convinced that this is this big need that they have to teach the kids explicitly about Islam in a public school. In a public school. Yeah. So, okay. So it says, yeah, he wants to have free clinics. He's gone to the Board of Education and he wants to provide free clinics in Islamophobia training to the faculty so that they can then go into the school and teach anti-Islamophobia. And he wants to be one of the people to go into the school as well. to do it. And you just heard what he said.
Yes. So we're studying from around 1895 or so to present day. Okay. And I was one of the only white people in the class. African American history traditionally is not something that most Caucasian or white people enroll in, but I was there, and the teacher was also white, but she was very, very
considerate.
she was very well versed in the history.
The teacher was white, a white female teaching African American history. He was the only white person besides her in the class. Do you notice his speech pattern too? How he has this affect now, like, I am a Muslim. He probably has even learned Arabic, but he has this whole affect to him as he's telling us he was.
Yes, very knowledgeable. That was her field of expertise, to my recollection. And so part of the reading syllabus was the history of Malcolm, the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Malcolm X.
Yes.
You should know that in the Cherry Hill Public Schools, they are reading the autobiography of Malcolm X in 6th grade. Can't even read very well, so they have audiobook, so they don't miss a beat.
Who has, rahimahullah, who has affected positively hundreds, if not thousands of people. We could even say more than that, perhaps, in his journey. And that autobiography introduced me to Islam. Yes. Yes. So, Malcolm X had a journey from the Nation of Islam, which was a very, very much black nationalistic movement in America that kind of used religion as a tool to empower the black community. Yes, of course, they were using religion as a tool to unite the black community in America and to empower them with faith, even though Nation of Islam, as is well known from their own publications, that there are the tenets of the faith do not agree with the actual tenets of Islam. Right.
Elijah Muhammad.
Of course, there's numerous things.
By the way, at the moment.
So we're going to stop here, but you get the whole thing as he's like, oh, I read about Malcolm X. I was in African American studies at NC State. She was very knowledgeable. And then he became Muslim. And now he's an imam at a mosque in New Jersey where there are thousands of members. And he is pressuring, and I mean hardcore pressuring, the Board of Education in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, to have this training, which to my knowledge, they are going to do. They've already adopted the African American Studies curriculum. The African American Studies curriculum has an enormous array of resources that it is teaching in the school already, as far as this, during the Black History class. So interestingly enough, it's not even what you would think of like American, African American, like African American history, but they are actually teaching this, anti-Palestinianism and Islamophobia stuff and all of these in that class, which has absolutely nothing to do with African American history. So anyway, leaving that there. Then I came across from the same parent who sent me, all this stuff in Cherry Hill, came across this article, Rewarding Radical Islamic Education, 2020. This gentleman right here is a principal at a school. But let's read about this. Some commentators are warning that if a case currently before the Supreme Court challenging refusals by the Montana state government to apply tax credits to private religious schools is successful, governments risk legitimizing religious segregation. The arguments are complex, and both supporters and detractors of the litigants do not always fall along traditional party lines. At the very least, I'm concerned that notwithstanding the declared benefits of private schools and a tax voucher program, government subsidy of religious schools may lead to taxpayers funding and legitimizing radical education. Well, we know that the school choice lobbyists are plowing full steam ahead, using the pressure brought to bear by those who want to send their kids to Christian school to make this a reality, even in places, where they're worried about violation of church and state. And so even though this is from 2020, it's going to happen. It's already happening. People are using vouchers for Catholic school and schools, like that. So when you give them, when you give them money for Christian school, you have to give it for Muslim school as well. And the way I know that this is a problem already is that you have the Freedom from Religion Foundation, and wherever you are in the whole religion thing for yourself, I hope you understand why it's so risky for the United States government to establish or support any particular religion with taxpayer dollars. I hope we can agree. I don't want my dollars going to any of this, and I wouldn't blame you if you didn't want your dollars going to a Jewish school. I mean, it's no harm, no foul. I'm not offended. I think that's correct. So it says dispelling the myth of school choice. From vouchers to tax credit scholarship programs, school choice schemes are a means to divert public money to private, mostly religious schools. School vouchers are taxpayer-funded scholarships for private school tuition, most of which benefit religiously segregated schools. 13 states and the District of Columbia currently fund voucher programs. These states include, and this is, I think as of now, okay. So scholarship tax credit programs have become a model for states who wish to subsidize private religious education, particularly in states with a constitutional ban on vouchers. So this is how they're calling it a tax credit scholarship. And it's all it is a workaround funding religious school where that is banned. They will find their workarounds. They always do. So below is a partial list of reasons why school vouchers are bad for students, bad for public schools, bad for education, and bad for our nation. Now, I'm not with them on, I don't care if they're bad for public schools. I want public schools gone, but they are definitely bad for the nation and definitely bad for students. School vouchers violate the constitutional principle of separation of church and state. It's very straightforward. School voucher schemes allow religious schools to inculcate children with religion, including instruction of creationism. Not my business, except for the taxpayer dollars. Americans do not support school voucher schemes. That's their opinion. Unfortunately, a lot do. They're fine with socialism, totally fine with it. School voucher schemes do not result in better academic performance. That's a fact. People say, "Oh, but they do." No, they are misattributing the better academic outcome that usually occurs when you have very involved parents, the kind of parents that would move heaven and earth to put you in a lottery or get you into a voucher program just to get you to what they hope is a more stable, less chaotic environment, which means away from some of the most negative things going on in the public school where you can perhaps do a little bit better. That's it. That's it. It is not because the teaching is better. And to the extent that you found a school, you're like, well, the teaching is better over here. The difference is tiny. It really is. You just don't realize it because you're not factoring in all of the other variables, like what it is to go to a school where they're not constantly having fights and distractions. School voucher schemes lead to unaccountable schools, fraud, and abuse. That's just a fact. Anytime there's government funding put into the hands of private individuals, but it's still government funding, there's fraud, waste, abuse, corruption. Voucher schemes fund discrimination. Well, in theory, I mean, you have rich people get them that don't need them, and then, somebody else who needs something doesn't get it, but it's the same tax money. So you are funding a kind of segregation, and none of this should be taxpayer funded, none of it. So wherever you fall in the political, spectrum, I personally you should be against this. You would have reasons to be against this. And it comes down to it's your money. And that's the folly of public schooling in the first place, is that we don't all agree politically. We don't all agree about how our kids should be raised. We still want to preserve freedom of speech and we want to preserve pluralism. But I like to believe we'd also like to preserve the Constitution of the United States. And we don't want to live in a country where we've got people using our money to compete with the Constitution, which is what the Muslim Brotherhood wanted to do as far back as 1991, and is what I am reasonably certain the gentleman wants to do, who was speaking in that video. I'm not reasonably certain. I am certain. I do know that when they believe what they believe it's appropriate for everybody. Islam is a collectivist religion. So to a large degree is Christianity, by the way. Christianity is a proselytizing religion and would like everyone to be Christian. But there are so many different denominations of Christianity, and even as proselytizing as they are, there isn't one that I've seen yet that says, I really, we are organized to take over the country. And that's what we think is appropriate, is to actually dismantle the entire country. And the Constitution, maybe Christian nationalism, but which is socialist. Christian nationalism is socialist, just like Islamism. So I just think that the Muslims have a head start on us in terms of numbers. So anyway, getting back to this, now that you have the full lay of the land. So this person says, at the very least, I'm concerned that notwithstanding the declared benefits of private schools and a tax voucher program, government subsidy of religious schools may lead to taxpayer funding and legitimization of radical education. The example of a radical principle of a government subsidized private Islamic school in Illinois, honored a few months ago by the White House for his educational work in spite of his theocratic views, confirms that extremists can benefit from blind government funding of private religious education. And again, 2020. In October, Habib Qadri traveled to Washington, D.C. to receive the National Distinguished Principal Award from the White House officials and attend receptions at the White House and State Department. As his school, the MCC Academy in Skokie, Illinois, proudly notes, this makes Qadri the first head of an Islamic school to receive this honor. Why was President Biden giving this honor to this man? I'm sorry. Did I put President Biden? President Trump. My bad. October of 2020, President Trump was still in office. So that's a pretty good question, isn't it? Nominated by the Council of Islamic Schools in North America, of which he's a board member, Qadri was selected through a joint program of the National Association of Elementary School Principals and the Department of Education after a rigorous 5-month-long application and selection process, including interviews, blah, 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 blah. One would perhaps expect that Qadri's own writing would have been checked, such as the book he and his brother wrote, The War Within Our Hearts. Qadri devotes his book to discussion of the ostensible evils and corruption of the Western world. Think maybe it was a mistake to give him an award in Washington, D.C. He thinks the Western world is evil, and he teaches children that. Significant portions of sale, for example, forms of dress that Qadri considers insufficiently Islamic. He decries the tolerance of inappropriately dressed men and women. He insists that women only expose at most their hands, face, and feet. Qadri argues that a person may look at someone of the opposite gender only for the amount of time it takes to identify who the person is and thereafter to divert one's gaze. Or else what, Mr. Qadri? When Qadri is not lecturing about the immorality of gender interaction and clothing in the West, he declares most television content haram, unlawful. Imagine if somebody like him got in charge of things and we no longer had freedom of speech because it was haram. We'd be living in Iran with morality police walking down the street and telling me to cover my hair if he had his way. Now, they do say these pronouncements are far removed from the views of most American Muslims. Qadri's writings promote a radical strain of Islam commonly known as Islamism. In fact, the foreword to Qadri's book is written by extremist cleric Zaid Shakir, who has previously warned against befriending the kuffar, unbelievers, Jews, and Christians. Shakir praises Qadri and his brother, who Shakir claims have provided a meaningful answer to Muslim youth in the West, walking an obstacle-strewn road. So let's scroll down. It says, I contacted the Department of Education, asked how nominated candidates for the award were considered, but received no response. Qadri's MCC Academy has already benefited from government largesse in the past. In 2019, the state of Illinois handed the extremist school a grant for $50,000 for capital improvements. The school is also already a beneficiary of Illinois tax credit scholarship program. It's already a beneficiary as of 2020 of school choice. So, the question on the thumbnail, could it support, would you agree that his views are extreme? His views are extreme. You can't look at someone of the opposite sex. You shouldn't be watching this kind of TV. It should be unlawful. Even this article points out that these are views extreme for your average American Muslim, and yet $50,000 plus they're a beneficiary of the tax credit scholarship program. In the last school year, tax credits paid the tuition of 20 MCC Academy students at an estimated total cost of $140,000. You think that was an appropriate use of taxpayer money in Illinois? I do not. It is already concerning that Kadri is the principal of a school with more than 700 students upon whom he is no doubt eager to impose his ideology. But even more disquieting is that the federal government itself should afford Kadri credibility as a suitable teacher of young children and as fit and proper representative of American Muslims, while a state government pours thousands of taxpayer dollars into a school's coffers. At the MCC Academy, a generation of American Muslims is being imbued with theocratic worldview, subsidized by Illinois taxpayers. Extremist elements in all faiths may well benefit from the imposition of voucher programs. May well, they are and they will. That's 2020, it's 2024. How many more do you think there are? I mean, just think about it. How many more are there? So I thought maybe we should go take a look at their website. This is their website. This is in Illinois. They're praying in the school. Tax dollars are paying for this. Okay. Mission and vision. Educational excellence, spiritual growth through a rigorous academic curriculum and Islamic school culture. Tools to tackle the challenges of the modern world while upholding their Islamic values. Well, we just read what the Islamic values are, right? We know what those are. And they're, very very concerned about that. So let's see. Testing, school council, yearly calendar, video, blah, blah, blah. They're getting they're getting state money. Oh, look, there's 2 campuses in Illinois. Now, this is just the MCC Academy. You've probably already heard that there are other such academies around the country. There are some that are straight up called madrasas. They too will be eligible for school choice money, tax credit scholarships. The tax credit scholarship gets you right around any kind of limitation as far as funding religious schools. It's a loophole that no one's talking about. So you've seen the protests, the anti Semitism, and the rising extremism on our streets in the last several months. I assume, unless you've been living in a cave under the polar ice cap. Well, what do you think is going to happen when there's school choice in your state and they have these things and people need to hurry up and build schools? And we already know that the government of Qatar and Yemen and places like that are only too happy to send money to the colleges. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to places like Harvard and so forth, and even NC State, apparently, where people like this guy got educated and radicalized and turned into an Islamist, very keen to turn the kids of Cherry Hill, New Jersey, the majority of whom used to be Jewish. Now it's a mix of Jewish and Black. But either way, he would love nothing more than to radicalize them and turn them on to Islam. You see what's happening? And remember, Islamism and communism are like, they're really not any different. They're both collectivist, state-run kind of things. I think it could end up in the end just being a competition of like, who's gonna win? Which version of statist is going to end up in charge? And generally speaking, the ones who are willing to kill just about anybody are the ones who win that battle. We've seen what happened with Hamas. We've seen what's happened in the streets so far with these protests. I don't know. Flip a coin. But I don't want my tax dollars paying for it. I don't want it to happen. If they want to have this school right here in the United States of America and have their little their Islamic values, whatever, knock yourself out. Just like there are Jewish schools, Catholic schools, Protestant schools, whatever. But no, I do not want to fund people who say that the West is evil. No. Sorry. I have a lot of problems with some of our cultural trends and so on, but I'm not willing to like kill people over it. Islamists are only too happy to, as we've seen. It is a belief system that is conquest oriented. It is absolutely anti-individual. And I refuse to support I refuse to support school choice for many, many reasons, but this is right near the top. Right near the top. Why should I pay for my own demise? It's ridiculous. I already have to pay for the public schools as it is. Now you want me to pay for public schools that want to kill me? Where they're teaching kids to kill me? That I should be dead or converted to some religion and cover my hair? No. And if you're watching this and you think, Deb, you sound Islamophobic, damn straight. Damn straight. Not even going to apologize. Why wouldn't I be? Why wouldn't I be? That is not to say there aren't individual Muslims who are lovely people who live, very moderate Western lives and all that, but they've chosen to moderate Islam. Islam has never been through reformation. There is no official reform Islam. The only official Islam is fundamentalist Islam. Everybody else is choosing to be a heretic. And if they were to get caught by some of these people, they could be punished, just like in Iran. Iran was full of Muslims before the students took over. How fast did that fall down? There's no separate reform denomination of Islam. So you bet your bottom dollar I'm afraid of it. I'm afraid of any ideology that seeks to impose itself on other people by force and that says you must submit or die. And if you're not afraid of that, then I have to ask you to like check your sanity because you should be. And I would be equally afraid of, Christian nationalism that had the same approach that it's like convert or die, live this way or die. Absolutely. So it's not just specific to them. That is a toxic death cult. I don't see any redeeming features to Islam. I'll just say it straight up. Islam means peace my ass. There you have it. So if you hate me now, you don't want to follow me anymore, that's your business. But no, I don't have anything nice to say about this particular religion. Not a big religionist to start with, but this one, ooh. Yeah, no thanks. So that's what I want to share with you. This is a very real concern for me. Hope it is for you too. So before you get all excited about school choice and tax credit scholarships, understand where they will mostly go. They will mostly go to schools like this because they go directly to the school, not to the parent. School gives the scholarship. Alrighty then. That's all I have for you today. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you back on Monday with another private show. Have a good weekend, everyone.